What up? It's Prime Pete. There is a way that EOMM can be beaten, and there's a way that eventually we can receive genuine change around this algorithm that manipulates entire play sessions. And there's a way that we can save Call of Duty. It's not an overnight solution, but over the next couple months of Modern Warfare 3's lifespan, we can take one simple step in order to be sure that something is done about COD's awful matchmaking. After all, it's not necessarily that the actual game is bad. The gunplay is great. The maps are great. The movement feels really nice. It's just that no matches are ever fair and enjoyable because of the horrible EOMM going on behind the scenes. It's truly not an understatement to say that EOMM is genuinely and single-handedly ruining Call of Duty. If Modern Warfare 3 had ping-based matchmaking and each match outcome wasn't rigged from the start, I'd probably be enjoying the game a lot right now, but I haven't played in a month. I've dedicated the better part of my channel to exposing the shady and manipulative practices of large gaming corporations, namely Activision, in order to clue players in on what is truly happening within the games they're playing. I focused mainly on Call of Duty and how the ultra-manipulative EOMM algorithm and other systems running behind the scenes create an artificial gameplay loop that is specifically made to addict players and make their play sessions as long as possible. However, by conducting enough research, which I've done a lot of, I've come up with a lot of deductions and conclusions about the nature of EOMM and why it eventually will fail, and also why in some cases it doesn't fail. After all, there's a reason why Call of Duty has 100,000 players and not 0. These algorithms are still working in engaging players, and some of you might argue, well, Pete, what if these people just think the game is fun? And what I say to that is, well, ignorance is bliss. Truly, it is. I had no idea about anything going on within Modern Warfare 2019 or Vanguard when I was playing them in their prime. My comprehension of matchmaking was so primitive that I was just convinced that my ping was being prioritized and that there was nothing going on. I have the most hours on Modern Warfare 2019 than I do in any COD ever, mainly because of search and destroy, gunfight, and shoot the ship. And if I had known about EOMM, I don't know if I could have brought myself to play it. I don't regret any time I spent on the game because I had an unbeatable amount of fun playing that game with friends over the quarantine, but having any knowledge about how the game wasn't actually how it seemed would have definitely deterred me away from playing it. So what point am I getting at here exactly? Well, if you couldn't guess from how I'm explaining, it's that EOMM has one key weakness that despite it being so diabolically crafted and shown to work theoretically and in a testing environment, it will still fall through in the end regardless. And that is because of the fact that we are human beings, not numbers or robots. More simply put, once someone knows and believes that EOMM exists, it has an incredibly negative impact on how often that individual plays the game in question. There's a decent amount to unpack here, but let's dive in. What do I mean by we're human, not robots? Well, it's complex to say the least, but it doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. The way corporations like Activision look at us is that we're just numbers, little specks spending dollar bills on their products. And because of that, enormous businesses will adjust their practices to be more enticing to customers, obviously. The way video games can do that is to 1, just be really fun, and 2, the more recently discovered way, is to acknowledge the player's performance in the actual game as tangible and a real variable that has a direct impact on how much the player plays the game. In short, making a genuinely fun game obviously increases player retention and engagement. However, certain patterns in a player's performance are actually shown to be more engaging in the long run than just random or consistent performances, despite how fun the game is. Take a look here. I referenced this study in a previous video, but basically, this chart shows the churn rate, or the percentage chance that a player would get off the game based on the pattern of wins, losses, and draws. This game is most likely FIFA, as it's an EA title, and has draws, so it's a pretty decent conclusion to draw. But regardless of what the game is, we notice that any patterns with too many back-to-back losses or too many back-to-back wins result in the highest likelihood that the player will get off. And the lowest likelihood is where it gets interesting. When players have inconsistent results, the likelihood that they get off the game is the absolute lowest it can be at this point, and it can reinforce our main theory. Inconsistent performances breed the highest amount of player retention and engagement, and that says something about human psychology when playing games. The more inconsistent your performance, the more you say, wait, I thought I did good and I'm a good player. Why did I suddenly do horrible? Maybe I just had a bad game. Let's play again to find out. Then the cycle just repeats over and over to no end. It's even worse if you're a genuinely competitive person and you hate doing poorly and losing. However, this is just a statistical average. The real power comes in an adaptive package. While it isn't clear if this is exactly true or not, it seems as if the algorithm will adapt to your play patterns and throw you into the match that is most likely to keep you playing. Along with taking into account your match history for that session, it also considers your play patterns and throws you into the match that it mathematically deduces to create the highest possible chance that you keep playing. Now, this isn't to say that it doesn't give you inconsistent results. At its baseline, it does. But what I'm proposing is that instead of just giving you inconsistent results, it reads your patterns and then adjusts to give you the best results for you personally. This is something I can't prove, but I suspect. If you want to know any more about the EOMM algorithm, watch this video I'll flag in the top right. But to make a long story much shorter, modern day Call of Duty matchmaking is basically EOMM, or engagement optimized matchmaking. And that is specifically designed to make you continue playing the game by throwing you matches that are the most likely to trigger your interest and keep you engaged in the game. So what I'm saying is, every match, for all intents and purposes, is rigged from the start with a predetermined outcome with the objective of making each player within that match queue up for another match afterwards. So basically, even when you're in the lobby screen, you're predestined for either a good game or a bad game, and there's hardly anything you can do to prevent the result the algorithm is trying to force on you. And this is just based upon basic knowledge of how EOMM works, proven by a study done on it and explaining exactly how the algorithm functions. It's a simple concept, but it has some diabolical implications. But let's rewind a little bit. This system seems like it's brutally effective, right? No one can escape its bounds, and it's proven by empirical data that certain match outcomes retain players much more effectively. So if this algorithm consistently does its job, that means that Call of Duty should only see a massive improvement in player retention. But it doesn't. In fact, sales are down 50% from last year, and Warzone, Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 3 combined only have a little over 100,000 players on Steam, and they refuse to release numbers on any other platform. For a AAA title, those numbers are embarrassingly low. Lethal Company is outperforming it on Steam, and that's an indie game. Why? Why, despite all the math and all the data proving that engagement-optimized matchmaking should be far more effective than skill-based matchmaking or connection-based matchmaking, engagement-optimized matchmaking still eventually falls short? Well, as I said earlier, the key is that we're human, not robots. If we take a look at this chart again, we have to remember that this was a study conducted to see what kind of results breed the most engagement. EOMM was certainly not used when these numbers were found, since this data was used to back up the choices made when developing it. This makes these results organic and legitimate. They haven't been tampered with by any algorithm, and each pattern was completely determined by normal matchmaking and just straight up player performance. So in this chart, we can say that if a player just happens to encounter inconsistent gameplay, empirical data shows that this player just happens to get off as little as half as frequently as a player that happens to consistently win or lose. Now, these players behaved in this way in a free-reign environment when matchmaking wasn't manipulating their results. But now, we have an algorithm that essentially guarantees this row of patterns at all times without fail. It doesn't allow for other patterns of match outcomes, and according to the executives, this should make the entire player base play for much longer since the data says that. However, this is what they're forgetting. Our humanity kicks in, but not right away. See, if you're unaware of what is happening in regards to the algorithms running that are messing with how you're experiencing the game, you won't suspect anything, and the EOMM will just do its thing, and you'll be influenced into playing a lot more than you expect, simply because the algorithm is tossing you matches that are likely to keep you engaged and playing, according to the statistics. But executives and business owners are so out of touch with the player experience that they expect these algorithms to be flawless and not aggravating at all. I bet the CEO of any company behind new COD games hasn't touched the game once, and they expect their player base to all just fall for it and not suspect anything. But we're human. We have emotions, and most importantly, we have intuition. Matchmaking in previous generations of games was never this aggravatingly inconsistent. It's not difficult to tell that something weird is going on if you just pay attention a little bit. A simple Google search will likely let you know the existence of EOMM, and it isn't long until someone knows the truth of how the algorithm works within the game. And this awareness of the algorithm quite simply disallows it to function properly. Although this matchmaking method is devastatingly effective in mathematical trials, as well as within the crowd of players that have no idea it's there, once the test subjects are aware that it's happening, its usefulness goes down the tubes. Main reason being, it goes against our motive for playing the game. People who play a certain game want to have fun playing that game. They have fun whenever they play, and they want fair and fun competition where anyone can come out on top. But EOMM takes that fairness and enjoyment out of each match once you realize it's there. You know the game is trying to give you a certain result, and then you realize that it's literally suffocating your freedom. It takes the fun out of trying to get that win because you're likely going to play poorly and lose if that's what the algorithm intends to happen. This part might get a little deep and complex, but it's one of the most important things I have ever said on this channel. Basically, what is happening is that Activision doesn't see COD as a game. Instead, they see it as a means of making money. Because of that, they're using the fact that players care about the game game and care about having fun on the game, and then manipulating how players feel when playing the game, whether it's being confused by inconsistent matches, constantly having their desired patterns of results fulfilled, seeing a bunch of microtransaction bundle skins running around everywhere, in order to have more players spend more money on the game. Instead of just creating a game that is fun at its core, Activision realized that actively manipulating how you personally perform in each specific match is actually much more of an influence on your engagement than just making a game fun. So, they engineered algorithms that directly manipulate how you specifically experience each individual match in order to keep you playing longer than if the game was simply fun. Arcades are a great example. They used to not be money grabs. They were filled with classic games that didn't offer anything but entertainment value. Games like Street Fighter, Super Sprint, Mortal Kombat, Super Mario Bros., Pac-Man, Pong. Those games profited and innovated the gaming scene purely because people found them entertaining and worthwhile. Now, you'll mostly see rigged games that promise to hand out stuffed animals, tickets, and super expensive technology as long as you perform a seemingly and deceptively easy task. Things like claw machines, Keymaster, and Stacker. The same thing happened with modern AAA multiplayer gaming. Companies realized that instead of making games fun, they can directly manipulate how you perform when playing the game, and then use that to draw you in and keep you spending money and time on the game. Most arcades nowadays are full of these rigged machines that promise a bigger payout than what you have to spend on it, and they started running rampant in most arcades around the world because big executives and companies that were out of touch with actually making entertaining games knew that they could exploit human psychology instead and make a killing that way. And who ends up falling for it? Children, maybe teenagers and adults who just want to win that nice stuffed animal for their partner or their child. Mostly just gullible people who are in denial that it's actually rigged and they can actually do it. But after a few failed attempts at getting that iPhone 15 behind that simple little keyhole, any person in their right mind will quit because they can easily tell that the game is rigged and your performance is being manipulated. And this once again proves my point. Once you're aware that a game is rigged, you can't be bothered to play it more than the amount of times it took you to figure out that it was rigged. Additionally, if you just look up on the internet, "Are claw machines rigged?" you'll get a unanimous yes. Call of Duty is the claw machine of gaming. Instead of being a genuinely fun game, your performance within each match is being manipulated based on what the algorithms deem will keep you invested. You may very well suspect that a claw machine is rigged, but you still sink $20 into it at a time because you keep seeing the claw wrap around that giant stuffed animal, wrapped around that iPhone, wrapped around those tickets, thinking that this time is the time that you get it. EOMM, and more specifically Call of Duty, is indeed the claw machine, the stacker, the keymaster of modern AAA multiplayer shooters. You think this is a new era of gaming? No, my friends. This psychology is decades old. It is one of the most ingenious and vicious cycles of addiction and money-making I have ever bore witness to. These companies know that once they design a fun enough game at the core, your play habits and attitude towards the game are not only affected by how fun the game is, but more so how you perform in each match. If each match is tailored towards keeping you playing, eventually you'll just be convinced you love the game, and subsequently, you're much more likely to spend money on bundles and the battle pass or whatever microtransactions they have going on. And then, the company doesn't have to give you anything tangible or anything that eats up their resources. They just give you a digital commodity with no physical value in exchange for cold hard cash, and all that does is make you more invested in the game. So, you play the game, you're unknowingly engaged by manipulative matchmaking, then you decide you like the game enough to spend money on anything within it. Then all that does is give you a cosmetic within the game. It benefits you in no other way except for looking a little cooler. Then you're just a walking advertisement for other players to buy skins as well. All while they don't have to give you a single physical object. Just a digital object that can be copied and pasted, bought and sold an unlimited number of times, at no detriment to the company who issues this microtransaction. But the one flaw is that they forget we're human beings. Once you realize that every match has a predetermined outcome, it goes against our motive of wanting fair and fun matches, because rigged games are not fair or fun, especially once you're sure they're rigged, like we are with EOMM. The human in us says, screw this, I'm not playing this game. It's rigged just to make me spend money. I'll play something else that isn't. And so, the awareness of EOMM is ultimately why it fails. The only thing companies can do is never acknowledge that it exists, ever. If they do, and players do a little bit of their own research, their player counts will plummet because it will be clear to see how much like the lottery Call of Duty Duty has become. It's addictive, not because it's fun, but because it's intricately designed to be addictive in sneakier ways. And guess what Activision has never done and will never do? Acknowledge that they use EOMM. And it's simply because once you're made aware of it, it no longer works. Because we're human, not just robotic, static data points that can't think or be influenced by outside factors. I rest my case. So what can we do about this? Well, I think there's a legitimate solution. Make sure as many people as humanly possible know that EOMM exists in Call of Duty. Make sure everyone knows how shady it is. Make sure they know it's actually in the game and not just some kind of dumb rumor. Make sure they know what it is supposed to do in regards to addicting players and selling microtransactions. And we can start that by telling any of our friends that play about it. Explain it as best you can. If you can't explain it, invite them to watch my YouTube videos about it or other videos about it, explaining it and proving its existence. Link them to any of the videos I'll link in the description about it. Like this video, share this video, comment your experiences on this video. Push this as far as humanly possible in the YouTube algorithm. We have to make sure something is done about this before AAA multiplayer shooters are lost to corporate greed. Long story short, make sure as many people as humanly possible know that EOMM exists in Call of Duty. We could get waves of people to quit at a time and force Activision's hand to address this abysmal excuse for entertainment and for a video game. I really hope something here resonated with you and my explanations made sense. Ask me any questions in the comments and let me know your experiences with modern COD's matchmaking issues. Anything I missed, let me know that as well. Let's make a genuine and legitimate difference. I'm Prime Pete. Take it easy.